Good day and welcome to Ramble On, Armidale Regional Council's podcast.
Perhaps the Armidale Mall stage might be known as the Prickle Chip going forward.
It cost a lazy $2 to $3 billion to build, so I have to say I don't have that sort of change. So, no.
Probably the best $4 million we've ever spent. Hello there and welcome to Ramble On, Armidale Regional Council's podcast, a way that we're trying to communicate a little better, a little differently with our community. As usual, my co-conspirator, the Mayor of Armidale Regional Council, Councillor Sam Coupland, is with me. Good afternoon, Sam.
Good afternoon, James, or Jronc is your handle.
Thank you. Or good day, I should say, so people don't know what time of the day that we're actually doing this. Look, it's been a little while since we've had one of these. We've had a couple of starts. We've had sort of weddings, funerals, bar mitzvahs, all sorts of stuff going on that's prevented us from being able to line up. So it's good to be back doing this. But I guess since last time we spoke, it's been occupying your time?
It was interesting. I had a look through the last couple of business papers. So the went before council, the June and the May one, which is probably a testament to how long it's been. And a few things that came out of that I reckon certainly should be of interest to the community. The first one is the New England Weeds Authority, and that which is it's a county council, but it's responsible for all of the weeds in four councils: Glen Innes, Armidale, Uralla, and Walker. And that went into administration, James, on the 17th of May. What does a county council going into administration mean?
Well, I guess for starters, it's not good. It's probably like a council, just a smaller version of a council going into administration, so it's not a good thing. Any time that happens, it's not a decision that the minister takes lightly, and you could probably point to all sorts of issues that may have occurred there, from anything through poor financial management through to maladministration or whatever it might be. But and I think that the disappointing part about all of that is it's such an important function that it serves too right across our district and our region in terms of looking after weeds or eradicating noxious weeds or keeping them under control and suppressing them. But I think the good news, Mr. Mayor, is that I guess as usual that we've got an administrator in place now. He's been really keen to engage with the four mayors of the representative councils that you just mentioned. And with a bit of support from the general managers of each of those councils to try and find a way out of that hole. It's quite a significant financial hole that organisation's dug itself into, but I think we have made some good ground in terms of how we might look to try and resolve that and retain that in some form of operation, whatever that might look like. And obviously we had a report go to council in the last month around that, as you mentioned, and then there'll be an update report to the July council meeting at the end of July. So, disappointing, but I guess we'll just try and find a way out of that and whatever that might look like.
You mentioned some financial troubles there, and that county council or the New England Weeds Authority owes a significant amount of money, and a fair bit of that's to locals. What sort of assurances do they have that they will get paid, even if there's a timing issue? Is there a backstop?
Well, there is a backstop, and I think it's only for the good grace of the four councils, the previously mentioned four councils that you mentioned that is the backstop ultimately. I mean, those four councils each make a contribution on an annual basis to varying degrees, subject to your size and budget and whatnot. But as you would know, our Armidale Regional Council contribution $320,000 a year, and then there's varying degrees slightly smaller than that from the other three councils. But ultimately, and I think fortuitously, we as a council, as part of our draft budget that went out on public exhibition in May, made an allowance for the potential to have to bail that organisation out, or at least lend it some money to do that. Yeah, it is unfortunate, as you mentioned, that there are some local businesses that are owed considerable amount of money, but the one good thing I think people can take some comfort in is that there's a very good administrator in place, well supported by the four local mayors and the general managers from the region that will work through those issues. But yeah, it's the backstop really is it's all going to the buck stops with the councils.
Great. So that should give people comfort, even if there's a timing challenge. Bit of good news, it was something that's been worked on really for 2 years or 18 months at least. The housing strategy came up before the June meeting. It's on public exhibition now. And so hopefully that will be adopted. In fact, I've received a fair bit of feedback, even to the extent of a developer came in and had a chat with me the other day. What's the purpose of a housing strategy, and why did we sort of need one in a hurry?
I think in very simple terms, and we've chatted about it on this program previously around when this council came to being in January 2022, the one thing that we as a staffing group asked of the council was to set the goalposts in place and don't move them. And that's something that I think has been one of the true successes of this council in doing. But what that's done is it's provided certainty out to the community, whether it's to our broader community ratepayers and right across the region. But certainly the housing strategy just does that, I guess. It really provides some certainty around the planning instruments that will apply, or the planning policies that will provide. It gives developers that sense of what might be achievable within our region. The other thing that it's done is it's opened up a significant number of development lots that we weren't aware of in our own right that we can put forward for development. But I guess also mapped out over the next 20 or 30 or 40 years how our council area will grow, where it will grow, and what will be permissible in each of those areas. So that level of certainty is just something that any developer wants. And similarly, like yourself, a couple of developers that I've had some discussions with have just been really buoyed by the fact that they know what the zoning is, they know what the requirements are, they know what they've got to do, they know what the minimum lot size needs to be, and they can plan and adjust accordingly around that. And that level of and because of that, one of the things that they're really keen to do is put their money where their mouth is and push on with their developments, which had sort of halted for a little bit of time, in the past. So that's been fantastic. And I'd love your view on this, but in my experience, the amount of strategic planning work that and I was only reflecting on this with you actually the other day, but I would be keen to hear your view more broadly. But, the amount of work that we've been able to cram into this 2.5 years of council term leading into an election, and we can discuss the election process a little bit later on, but has just been phenomenal. I've worked in organisations where you wouldn't see that level of planning work done and outcomes in 2 terms, let alone an abridged or shortened term like we've had here. And it's not just aspirational stuff, it's really meat on the bone stuff. So we've talked about the towards 50,000 in terms of a population, but actually having that roadmap that maps out how we'll get there is really that level of certainty that people love. But I'd love to hear your thoughts around that.
Well, I don't have a benchmark to compare it to. This being my first local government experience. So, I've said this in various forums, even, when we're out seeing the special rate variation and, talking to the community there. It's the team at council, your exec and the people that work under them. They're as dedicated and as hardworking as anything that I've seen in the corporate world. So the output is great, but the output's what I'm used to seeing.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
and that's a really, really good thing. But I am, chuffed to be part of a council that I think is really turning the corner. And you said when we first came in as councillors that this is not going to be a term where there's ribbons to be cut, babies to be kissed, or anything like that. It's about trying to right the ship, steady it, put all of the plans in place, and we can launch from there. So, I think that's all been done to a large extent, and we'd be looking, I guess, the next 4-year term to really start to flesh it out and see
kiss those babies and cut those ribbons.
Yeah, well, I don't know if the babies want to be kissed. They probably don't. Ribbons aren't sentient beings, so they can be cut. But I reckon that this region will look fairly different in the next 4 years, and particularly with that renewable energy zone coming and the New England Res being declared critical state significant infrastructure.
Yeah, great recent announcement.
Yeah, so that's another thing that provides certainty. And with that happening, we would see, I reckon, towards the back end of the next 4-year term, the construction not just of the transmission lines sort of being in full swing, but many of the projects as well. So it's timely that we have that local strategic planning statement, the housing strategy, all of these things, so that when we're in discussions with the state government departments that are running this, we can, really present them with some well thought out plans on where we want housing to be done, how we're going to accommodate all of these workers, because, a lot of questions come from the creation of the renewable energy zone.
Yeah.
Great questions, all of which can be solved if people throw money at it, but governments will only throw money at well thought out plans, not at thought bubbles. So
yeah, absolutely.
We'll see how we go.
And I think you're right. We've talked about the local housing strategy, the local strategic planning statement that we've mentioned here previously, but that was a key document that really sort of set the benchmark, if you like, for where we wanted to head as a. And we actually got some good feedback from state government agencies on that too, which can be a bit hit and miss at times. So that was really great. We did a horticultural study early in the term that sort of talked about what the opportunities might be there. And then I think the other big one that we've really tackled with vigour has been the water security issue, because we know that all of everything that we're doing, all the aspirations as they might be, are all underpinned by water security, and that's really the roadmap. I think that brings all of that together, and the work that we're doing with Oakey and the opportunities that will come from that. There'll be a council report coming up to this meeting, again about the next stages of Oakey and how some grant funding that we've been invited through an EOI process to lodge with the federal government for the next stage of that work. So, there's so much happening, and again, it would take 8 to 10 years. We've done 8 to 10 years worth of work in a very short period of time, and I think we've really. We've gone from wanting to be a region of significance to one that now actually can compete at that level, and with some of the bigger regional centres, and that's a fantastic effort in such a short space of time. So I think all bodes well as we move forward.
Yeah, indeed. It'll be interesting to see who throws their hat in the ring for the council elections in September. Yeah,
great segue. Council elections, as people would know or may know or may be interested to know, will take place on the 14th of September. As a council, we actually go into what is referred to as caretaker mode on the 14th of August. That's a month before. That essentially means that any sort of formal business of council ceases for that period until the new council are elected. As a result of that, obviously, I expect July will be a big meeting in terms of the reports and trying to get some work through, some business through, or at least so we can continue to do work while we are in caretaker. And may even require an extraordinary meeting in early August, subject to how that might play out around the current local housing strategy, which is out on public exhibition, as you mentioned. Towards the end of July, we'll have submissions close on those. So if it's possible to get that up in this term of council, I think that would be a fitting decision for this council to make in terms of whether they want to see it move forward and it's adopted or some changes made. But so it's really exciting. We've had a couple of sessions in the community for any potential new councillors that might be interested. We had a session at Guyra and a session in Armidale a few weeks ago, and I've certainly made myself available to anybody out in the community who may be thinking of running for council and would like to sort of understand what has happened over the last 2 or 3 years that I've been here, and certainly in this term. Happy to make myself available and have that discussion. Of course, I'll give the things to them from my perspective, which is just one perspective. But I think, Mr. Mayor, you'd also be very happy to meet with anyone.
Yeah, I would. I've spoken with 4 people that are interested in running, and really keen to hear from anyone else if they, think it's worthwhile or would like to have a chat about, what it means, certainly, from my perspective, because a lot of people come into it with an idea of what council's like, and we've spoken about this before, and certainly what the role of the councillor is. But, you're there to, you're not operational. But I think it's important, if people are going to run for council, that they, stand for something. There has to be a reason to do it. And hopefully in this current term, we've removed one of the reasons that I think some people ran, and that was that council become more functional. Hopefully we have been able to demonstrate, that both from an operational point of view, but also from a governance point of view, council's on a steady footing. People might watch some of those council meetings and see little, flare-ups and a little bit of grandstanding, but, put the theatre aside, the machine rolls on, and I think rolls on effectively, particularly now that we're, a financially viable council.
Yes.
Which is something that's unique amongst regional councils. And there's, as we predicted when, we went out for our rate rise, we were one of the early crop.
Yeah.
So many more last year, a lot more this year, and I think there'll be a real rush next year after the council elections.
I agree with you, yeah. And, just on that, it's and one of the reasons why I think it's important for anyone that may be thinking of running to come and have a chat with either you or I is that, in my experience, and I've seen it at a number of councils, the number of people that run on single issues, and they get elected, and then they realise that it's not a local government issue, or it doesn't fall within their bailiwick to be able to resolve it anyway, or it just simply is too difficult and can't be, and they lose interest very quickly. They cause a by-election, and then that's a significant expense then to the community. So, again, just getting a bit of a backdrop or an idea about what might be possible, it's a great opportunity to certainly for me, it's a great opportunity to meet anybody that might be interested. And again, I can just share my experiences and my views with them and give them a really good lay of the land in terms of what they might be coming into and how they can make best use of what they bring to the table. So I think that'd be a great opportunity.
Yeah, it would be good. And, as you say, single issue might be the thing that motivates you, but once you're there, you have to make decisions for the greater good of the region.
Indeed, yeah.
Even if it's something that's uncomfortable, difficult, etc. Speaking of big decisions, Kempsey Armidale Road Restoration Project, or CARP as it's known, is a monster. Just tell us a bit about it in terms of scale. Is it the sort of thing councils normally take on, and if not, how are we protected?
It's an absolute monster of a project. It had been entered into when I started back in January 21. The project was underway, and it was at that point it was about a $220 million project that council was involved in, and we had to make some decisions at the time about. It was sort of rolling on, and council was sort of somewhat involved, or was making those applications for funding. But at that point, it was genuinely a disaster recovery exercise. I was always a little bit hesitant about going into it because I knew that our ability to manage projects was not as sound as it had been in terms of blowouts and managing the budgets and those sorts of things. It was probably not a key strength of Armidale Regional Council. So early on we'd put some process in place, I guess, and some learnings in place to try and improve our ability to manage projects. And when this $220 million project came along, which later became a $408 million project, and now there's a further bid into government that we're waiting on, which is significantly more than the 408 that had been approved, I would have liked a slightly smaller project for us to have cut our teeth on in terms of honing our project management capability. But I guess in for a penny and in for a pound, and recognising that the people of Lower Creek are an important part of our region, and even though they might be small in number, they're still part of our region, and it was in their best interest that we as a council sought to take that project on, because we could get access to funding that state and federal governments just couldn't get access to. So So we have cut our teeth along the way, and we've made some mistakes, but I think but we've learnt from those very quickly, and they haven't been major. And, historically you could have, 5, 10, 15% blowouts in budgets that we've had historically here, and that can mean millions of dollars. But even 1% on a project like this is going to be something like $4 million, $4 or $5 million. And if it's traditionally a 10 or 15% blowout, then it would bankrupt the council. So we've done a lot of work with Transport for New South Wales to avoid that as a pitfall. For instance, making sure that we were able to get advances on the money on the grant funds. So we've actually got, let's say we get a $20 or $30 million advance on that money's actually sitting there that we can pay bills out of, no impact on council's cash flow, and then we top it up regularly as we need to ensure that we've got a bit of a buffer there. So just protecting council's cash flow, for instance, was key critical, making sure that we attract really good staff, people that know their craft and know the business. That's been key, because this is a very different project to anything that local councils have done. This is probably the single largest infrastructure project any local government authority has ever taken on, or it certainly was right up until Lismore and Byron had the issues that they had around the floods. Now their projects have probably surpassed us, but we're really setting the benchmark in terms of a lot of the work that the other councils are following, just in terms of the cash flow issue, for instance, and some of the tripart agreements and all of those sorts of things that just help us get the funding, manage the risk, and make sure we get good personnel in place to complete the job and do it in a satisfactory way. But importantly, I think you and I both sit on the steering committee. I think that's great that we get to do that. That's a level of surety for the council that two of the more senior members of the council are across what's happening. Touch wood, that all plays out well, but it's been really good. So just improving the financial reporting, improving the level of reporting. Alex Manners, who was formerly in our looking after assets and services, Alex has sort of transitioned across to that project on a permanent basis for at least 6 months. Again, that was the level of comfort I needed to make sure that we were getting the right information and the right level of interaction and integration back into the council. And Alex has done a wonderful job in that space. And so, we've learned some lessons along the way, but we're really confident now and comfortable that we've got it to where we need it to be, and we're not going to take a bath on it, which is the most important thing. So, and we've got some great support from Transport for New South Wales as well. Those guys have been absolutely fantastic in terms of stepping up. And just earlier this week, you and I had the great opportunity to meet with the Minister for Roads, Jenny Atchison, and the Minister had, last time she visited, has actually taken the time to drive the road. So she gets it, understands it, knows what it's all about. And so when we're having those discussions with her, like we did earlier this week, she knows exactly what we're talking about, and it's a really great conversation in terms of risk mitigation and that shared responsibility. So I think it started out having its struggles and challenges, but I think we're starting to knock those off very quickly and get into a pretty sound position.
So the one that you'll have to duck and weave, but I'll ask, when's it going to be open? When can we all flood to Kempsey via Lower Creek?
It's going to be a 4 to 5 year project, program of works. So probably, I think at this point it's sort of talking late-ish 2028 before the road's officially open. But like all of these projects, depending on weather and all those sorts of things, sometimes there can be delays. I'd say you'd be looking probably the first half of 2025, but 2029, I should say, 2025, 2029. So, but it is a 4 to 5 year project. So. But it is a significant one that we're taking on. And then, of course, after that, we'll have the discussions with the government around the reclassification promises that had been made previously. If we can make that a regional road, that puts it back on their books in terms of an asset, and then we can do the maintenance work for them. But that'll be a discussion we'll have to have with the government down the track. All
right, so we can dust off the camping gear and the kayaks, probably Christmas 2028.
Yeah, well, there's plenty of lead time in order to do that said dusting. So,
excellent.
Yeah, but that'll be it.
Very good. One positive that came out of the last council meeting was the community small grants that went out. There was $20,000 in total up to be contested, and community groups could apply for up to $2,000 for it. And I think there was over 20 or 25 people and $50,000 worth of applicants, but it was whittled down to 12, and I think they range from $600 through to 2,000.
To 2,000, yeah, fantastic, yeah. And I think the success of that probably provides us with a bit of an opportunity to, slowly as our financial situation improves, there's an opportunity for us to increase that pool year on year. And we've seen it, 50K worth of applications, and our ability to only fund 20,000 worth. So yeah, there's some good opportunity there. It shows there's some demonstrated interest out there in the community that are looking for just a little bit of seed funding here and there for stuff. And I just think it's probably similar to yourself. I think it's great that we as a local council can provide. Help people with their dreams and aspirations and give them a bit of a kickstart. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think if that could be increased, not so the dollar amount necessarily goes up, but just so more community groups can get some financial assistance, because the role of council in these things, I guess, to facilitate a vibrant community is to be enablers.
Yes. And
if $600, $1,000, $2,000 really helps a community group put an event on that benefits others, it's money really, really well spent.
Yeah, it is. It's that sort of seed funding's fantastic for that, and in many ways that's how the Big Chill started. It was some seed funding from the state government that was able to go towards a dream, I guess, that some of the ARC team had around putting on a big concert, and then look at what it's built into now. It's been it was absolutely huge, the most recent one. So.
I was speaking to one of our internal organisers the other day to see if the tent's been booked for next year.
And it has?
It has.
It has, yeah, great, yeah.
Yeah, that was the saviour.
No, they're incredibly, that team just went above and beyond. And it's interesting, I was watching there was an article or a news article I read not so long ago that some of these really big events like your Falls Festival or, that style of, I'm probably past going to those sorts of things, but that style of thing are all falling over and not happening in the last few years because, again, just, for whatever the reason might be, the promoters can't get it together or can't attract the crowds or whatever. But, the likes of, there's a recent Sky News program, actually, clip that I saw, and, the likes of the Big Chill, and the other one that was highlighted was the Tamworth Country Music Festival. But, they're largely council-driven projects, and we've got the teams that are really passionate about doing that stuff and did it well. And we've had a lot of feedback, actually, from different groups and even the performers there.
Well, that's right. He's not Johnny Diesel. He was, or just Diesel he goes to, the cool name of now, said exactly that. And a few of the other performers, it's so good, particularly with, say, the Byron Blues Festival, falling over. You just wonder if they become too big, too unwieldy, too expensive. Yeah. But anyway, we're going, and they were just chuffed.
And the question coming from them, of course, was, they couldn't believe that it was a local council that was doing all the organising for it, which is a great kudos to our team, as you mentioned, and their ability to punch so far above their weight, it's not funny. So no, well done to the RC events and activation team. That was really good. So what do you see on for the next few weeks, Mr. Mayor?
Well, I'd be interested to see what your team are putting forward for the business papers. What's going to be a bit curly there. So that's going to be interesting. I'm really hoping I get to chat to some people that come out of the woodwork that want to run for council.
That'd be great, yes.
That'll be good. We're going from 11 councillors down to 9. It's always good if these things are contested.
Yes.
Well contested.
Well contested, yeah.
So that will be interesting. So from a council perspective, a little bit of wait and see.
Yeah, great. And the renewable energy news, any beyond the declaration of the critical
state significant infrastructure. Look, that'll pick up pace. I think with Energy Co that are building the res seem to be purely focused on the Central West at the moment. So they'll have to start turning their attention back to us, and that's where, you know, all those things like housing, water, health, et cetera, we're going to have working groups with the state government to get those things ironed out.
Yeah.
What is likely to come out fairly soon is the wind and solar guidelines.
Yes.
And I had a chat to the Energy Minister Penny Sharp's team and Department of Planning last week, just to get a bit of a surety or a bit of assurance that some of the things that we'd spoken about with them hadn't been weaseled out after pressure from the developers, and they assured me all was good. So they should come out in coming weeks. That's the sort of thing that probably should have been available 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But, you know, better late than never.
Yeah, true.
So that will happen. I think we've been pretty shielded here in the Armidale region from a lot of that renewable energy blowback. You just have to look south and see it's playing out fairly roughly in Walker at the moment. Also Tamworth, they've got a Hills of Gold project out in Nundle where I grew up, and that's causing a little bit of grief. It appeared on the 7:30 report, or maybe a Four Corners episode, that particular one.
Yeah, right, okay.
And somewhat interestingly there, the Department of Planning, they were initially approved and they'd had 20-odd towers removed. The developer appealed that, and the state government said, well, actually, it's not viable at, say, 47 towers.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, so they insisted that another 16 or 17 towers went back.
Yeah, right. Well, so, that puts a whole new perspective on things too.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
I think as we're rushing sort of headlong into this renewable world, things are going to, it's not going at the sort of pace that's necessary, and blackouts would just be electoral kryptonite to any government, so exactly. they can't have that happening. So I think we're going to start seeing things smash through, which, isn't necessarily great, but it's, unfortunately the world we live in.
It's where it is, yeah. Now, I know we're just about out of time, but it would be remiss of me not to mention the awards ceremony you attended last week in Canberra. Take us through that.
Yeah, that was great. That was the Australian Council of Local Government, and Armidale, we'd put in for a couple of awards there.
We did.
And I heard a figure, I quoted it might have been wrong, but 11,000, can't have been 11,000 applications, but there's 570-something local governments throughout Australia. There were 11 award categories, and Armidale won the Career Starter Award for Girls in Civil.
Program, fantastic.
It's a great program. So Annie Harris and her People and Culture team were right behind that, and that's taking some school kids, some young girls, some school kids, and giving them, exposure to what it's like, driving equipment and that sort of thing. So that was a real coup. That was and that awards ceremony was at Parliament House, and Anthony Albanese presented the award to both Annie and myself.
Fantastic.
As did Christy McBain, the Minister for Local Government. So that was a really good thing. We went along with a number of our friendly councils, and hadn't really worded them up that we're up for a prize. So that was
that's great. Yeah.
That was good. And then Annie and I received that award and were walking off stage, and then they read out some runners up on other awards, and Armidale appeared again just as a runner up in the, I think it was Women in Local Government.
Yeah,
section.
the Women in Leadership program
that
we're running. Yeah, which was great. So I think it was a highly commended in that award as well, which is great. I think great recognition for the stuff that that we do, that we've been trying to roll out, and I guess those pathways we've been trying to create for, not the Girls in Civil program was part of that, but obviously some of those pathways improve the visibility of women in the workplace as well, which is not always been a key focus for this council or a number of councils. So yeah, very proud. But no, you and Annie look chuffed with Albo in the middle, and
how could we not? But it's sort of been awards season, so a bit of a pat on the back to you and your team there, James. That's you've received a risk management award. You've received this career starter award, and also the the highly commended for women in leadership. So it does speak volumes, I guess, around the culture of the organisation, and culture is a very intangible things. So these are tangible, I guess, accolades for something that's really, really important.
No, thank you. No, it's great. And I think the organisation's really turned the corner in terms of that. I think it's noticeable both within and outside the council too, just the change that people are seeing, and a really happy, aligned staffing group. And they're aligned behind a vision and have some real purpose about what they're doing, and that vision and that purpose has been created by the council, and the certainty that it's provided in terms of its decision making, and that allows us just to get on with it. So it's been it's a well-oiled machine that's moving towards being high performing.
So whilst we've had a call out for potential councillors, you'd sort of encourage, I guess, the community, if they see a job for ARC, to fill your boots.
Yeah, by all means. If you think that you've, we'll say straight off, we recruit for organisation fit rather than specific skill or technical ability. So if you're a good fit for the organisation and you want to be part of somewhere that's a great place to work, have a bit of fun, and have lots of interesting stuff to do day in, day out, then we're the place for you. But we also appreciate we might not be everyone's cup of tea. So. But we've made some real strides forward, and if you want great work-life balance and a great place to be, then we are certainly all of that. But be more than happy to talk to anyone around that as well.
Brilliant.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's probably got us up to well and truly one of our longer podcasts. But thank you for your time, and
well worth it.
And best wishes over the next month or so.
You too, James.
Thank you.
See you soon.